It's been a hot minute since Disney decided to spin the roulette wheel and select a cherished but hilariously outdated and somewhat culturally insensitive ride to make a movie on. But with the magnetic star power of The Rock and a sprinkling of that Pirates of the Caribbean magic, Jungle Cruise is a rollicking adventure down the Amazon River.
There they are!
Frank, follow me!
Stop her!
Oh, God, sorry, Frank.
Sorry, strong form.
Jungle Cruise stars Hollywood charisma personified Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, the always awesome Emily Blunt, and was directed by Jaume-Collet Sera. The film is set prior to the First World War, centering on Blunt's character, the adventurous and impulsive Dr. Lily Horton, who, along with her prim and proper reluctant brother, hired Johnson's out-for-himself riverboat captain Frank Wolf to skipper them down the Amazon in search of the Tears of the Moon, which we would know as the Tree of Life, while also staying one step ahead of the German mercenaries hot on their heels. As they rumble through the jungle, they must contend with rapids, vicious wildlife, and supernatural undead Spaniards who also seek the Tears of the Moon for their own ends. The first thing that was immediately apparent as the movie began was that the score was emulating Pirates of the Caribbean. While it isn't an instant classic the way that movie was, it more than shares DNA with it. The first Pirates of the Caribbean trilogy was directed by Gore Verbinski, a visionary director with an eye for cinematography. And while Jungle Cruise does have some fantastic imagery, it's probably not going to hold up as well as those movies do. Likewise, it's hard not to compare this movie to Stephen Sommers' The Mummy. The first one, not the second one, which also starred an approximate likeness of The Rock. Or the third one, or that forgettable one with Tom Cruise. So, just the first one, really. And those comparisons to The Mummy and the Pirates of the Caribbean movies are likely drawn due to the period setting, the adventurous spirit, and the incredible chemistry shared between its cast. You could also make comparisons to the film African Queen, but I won't, because that movie is Hollywood timeless, and this movie's just too new. But hell, the romance was actually just right, and that's pretty hard to do. Johnson and Blunt have chemistry for days, and it's all right there, on the screen. Their bickering and banter reminds me of old school Hollywood, striking the perfect tone of silly, but never not taking itself seriously. It's almost like Romancing the Stone. Like, seriously, if you enjoy this movie, you should go watch Romancing the Stone. That movie is also quite fantastic. The plot of Jungle Cruise rollicks along while Johnson and Blunt butt heads, but the soft, almost gentle romance that forms between them it's impossible not to root for, considering how utterly charming both of them are. Jack Whitehall plays Blunt's brother character in the film, and even he's given some decent character arcs beyond just being the comic relief, which he is regardless. I actually really enjoyed the subtle insanity that Jesse Plemons brings to the German Prince Commander villain, and he would ordinarily steal every single scene he's in, but here he just adds even more fun zaniness into the mix. Also, Paul Giamatti's in it. Paul Giamatti is always welcome in every movie. Paul Giamatti should also be in every movie. The first half of the film is pretty breathlessly paced. It's bonkers how quickly it sets up the central plot and then just steamrolls into the action. The actual set pieces are all very bouncy and fun as the central trio scrape through one encounter after another based on wits as much as pure dumb luck. Almost as if Buster Keaton found himself lost in the Amazon. It's the kind of action that makes you laugh at the whimsical knockaboutness of it all. Yeah, I know that's not a word, it's just hard to describe. Knockaboutness. Copyright. I also like that Blunt got to show off her action chops in this film. She is every bit as physical as Johnson, jumping into every pratfall and fistfight. She's almost the female Indiana Jones, and I really hope this gets her into more roles like this. She's so good. The special effects complement the action pretty well. While the CGI probably made up the bulk of the sets in the movie, it's never super distracting. There was only a handful of shots throughout the film that stood out to me because the movie has a light-hearted tone and the action has a bouncy rubber band quality to it. It actually fits really well. By the time you get to the supernatural villains of the film, I don't think you'll be complaining about the lack of photorealism in certain elements that were already designed to be larger than life. Complementing all of this is a pretty fantastic James Newton Howard score that could have absolutely been used in a new Indiana Jones film. Or The Mummy 4 with Brendan Fraser. Someone please make that happen. Please and thank you. Honestly, I really enjoyed the score to this film. I would even consider purchasing it separate from the film. It has that sense of wonder and awe and catapults the film through to the credits. There was a rearrangement of Metallica's Nothing Else Matters that was also put to use in 2 scenes in the film, which was quite excellent. It kind of took me by surprise, and once I realised what it was impossible not to smile. So, what would I criticise? I think that the film, for the first half, is completely thrilling. The plot is relentlessly paced and smashes headfirst through the first act with barely enough time to breathe between banter and bonkers action. The breakneck pace does begin to slow down a bit before we enter the third act, but there is some fun twists and turns in the plot that took me by surprise, which alleviates the fact that they really could have shaved about 15 minutes out of the 2.5-hour runtime to tighten the film overall. It also has that weird effect that a lot of new films are having, which is that there is too many villains, and it underserves all of them because it can't flesh out all of them. The characters are all very fun, but if there had just been more focus for the antagonists, I think they could have streamlined it a bit. The focus for the most part is put squarely on the heroes, and that's where the bulk of the development takes place. Which is, luckily, okay because of how insanely charismatic the leads are. Overall, I would probably give Jungle Cruise a B. It really is a fantastically fun film, and if you were to sandwich it between The Mummy and Pirates of the Caribbean, you would have yourself a pretty perfect movie marathon. It's the second best movie Disney's made based on one of their rides, and it's at its best when the core cast are together, bouncing through bonkers, over-the-top action beats, flirting, fighting, bickering, and just being completely watchable. I had a blast with this flick. It was an hour in when I realised that I hadn't stopped smiling. It's a family movie that parents won't be embarrassed or bored by, an adventure that feels decidedly old school without a superhero in sight. Jungle Cruise, for me, is a winner, and is a fantastic film to catch on the big screen with big sound. So, until next time, later days.